back to Setting the Edge. We are in NFL Week 4. We're going to be breaking down the picks that I like a lot this week in respect to gambling. I have about 5 picks, and my man's Ryan over here, co-host as always, has one for you guys that he is targeting specifically. We're recording this on Thursday, and we'll be only targeting these Sunday games. Little housekeeping work. Make sure you check out our website, settingtheedge.weebly.com. All of our content and picks, podcasts, videos are all at the website. Make sure you follow the account on Twitter as well, at settingtheedge_. I am Vaughn R16, and he is the Great Zambino, and the is spelled with an A. We're going to get right into things, Ryan, here. The first game I'm looking to, we're looking at in gambling perspectives and survivor pools, stuff that you're making your big money on. Bills, Patriots, Bills on the road with the Pats. There's not really lines available yet for this game. I see Pats -4, though, on some sites. No over-under yet posted because of the quarterback situation. I'm not playing this game whatsoever just because the line's not out, and I might toss the Pats in for a survivor pick, but I usually like to save them for a bit later. Do you have any perspective on this game, Ryan?
From a betting perspective, no, but going through like the pigskin pick 'em for every week or for every game of the week, I'm looking for the Patriots to win this one. I just think Rex Ryan's trying to play too many mind games and such, not focusing enough on the actual game. So I'm looking for the Patriots to win money line here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to win this game. They should be able to cover the spread too, but there's nothing out yet. They're not going to put out a line until the Pats announce their quarterback. So I'm fine with staying away from it in a betting perspective. But the first game on Sunday, we have the Colts, Jags, 9:30 in the morning, going across the pond to play out in London. The Jags are always out there. They're not, they're not unfamiliar with the facility. We know it's a gross field, but this game is looking to be a shootout here. The line right now I see is the Colts favored by 2.5, over under here at 49. Usually games out in London are a bit on the underside of the score. But this game is one of my picks here. I like Jacksonville plus 2.5. I don't think their offense has been up to what the potential of that offense is through the roof, in my opinion. Blake Bortles can throw the ball around. He's just made some really dumb mistakes, forcing the ball at the end of games, especially in the one in the Ravens game. I'm looking at in general. And I don't think the Colts defense is really that great at all. And last year we targeted them a lot, specifically the number 2 receiver, Allen Hurns, your boy, actually had his biggest games against the Colts last year because the number 1 wide receiver locks up pretty well. But I do expect Allen Robinson to be a huge part of this game. And Julius Thomas has a favorable matchup on the Colts. Just don't guard tight ends that well. What is your thoughts on this game?
Looking at this game, I don't really have any big perspective. I'm not a big NFL betting against the spread guy. I stick to the money line if I'm betting the game, and then I'll fire off some live bets during a game, during like the Monday night football game, the Thursday night game, and so on and so forth. But when I'm looking at this one for my pigskin pick'em, I think I'm going to go with the Colts this week, mainly just because I believe Andrew Luck is going to be able to get the job done. The losing team in London has had its coach fired like some 8 times. So I think Gus Bradley is really coaching for his season right now. I can go. This one's really a toss-up. There's probably like 2 or 3 games on this slate where I'm sitting here thinking it's a toss-up and I can't really decide between the two. And this is definitely one of them. But I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna end up picking the Indianapolis Colts on my pigskin pick'em entry when all is said and done.
I would be leaning the Jags personally, just because I think they win this game outright, even though they're dogged in the spread. Here's a little betting trends from you that I've been looking at. Indy is 6-3 against the spread in the last 9 games and playing on the road against Jacksonville. The total has gone over in Indy's 10 of last 15 games and playing on the road against Jacksonville. The total has gone over in 10 of Jacksonville's last 15 games when playing at home. Technically, this isn't really a home game, even though it's out in London. And Jacksonville is 2-5 against the spread in the last 7 games and playing Indianapolis. Just a little bit of notes to look at in regards to some trends. If you're that kind of gambler yourself, I am not. I just like to see talent on the team on both sides of the ball. This is a spot that they are in. if there's been any coaching changes or any locker room changes, and then just matchups personally. I think the Jaguars match up pretty good in this game, and I think they can win outright. Looking at the over/under, I'm leaning over, but I will not be touching this game because usually the early games in London tend to scare me. I wouldn't be worried about the traveling distance, though. This is pretty much in perspective a Monday night, Sunday day game comparison, so I wouldn't be worried about the traveling. Moving to another 1 o'clock game here, one in which I will not be betting on in general, but we have the Titans at the Texans. Titans are 1-2, Texans are 2-1. We all know the news. J.J. Watt not playing. He's pretty much out for the season with the injury. Right now, the betting lines are Houston -4.5 with the over/under set at a pretty low 40.5. Ryan, do you have any perspective on this game here?
Looking at this one, the over/under being so low is kind of surprising to me because I see a couple other games on this Sunday that I think could go much lower scoring, especially with J.J. Watt being out, that defense not being as strong, and the Titans offense really going through DeMarco Murray a lot, and it seems to be working. For this game, just to go with the Texans here, just because I think that their offense is going to, at the end of the day, be able to outscore the Tennessee Titans in what Vegas is expecting to be a low-scoring matchup. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if without J.J. Watt, the Titans are able to pull this one out.
Yeah, according to some ESPN statistics, the Titans have lost 4 straight and 7 of 8 versus the Texans, and they're 2-10 in divisional games since 2014. I'm not really expecting the Titans to pull out a win here. And I feel like the recency bias here is really disrespecting what the Texans can do on offense. You know, we know what DeAndre Hopkins can do, and Will Fuller is great if you take away the drop passes. I mean, they obviously looked awful against the Pats because that's what the Patriots do to teams. But I wouldn't be surprised if this offense blows up and scores himself, 4 or 5 touchdowns. But I'm leaning this game going under that 40 total because I really don't think Titans can really get anything going at all. Mariota is very susceptible to turnovers and causing not fantasy goodness to say on their side of the ball. And the running backs are getting better for the Titans, but overall they have no passing game besides from Delaney Walker. And Tajay Sharp is just not a big piece yet. Give me the Texans and a pick 'em. I think that's a pretty safe pick across the board if you haven't used them. Lamar Miller is also one of the best running backs in the league, so I think you're looking pretty good if you're rolling with the Texans there. Moving on to the next game, Cleveland Browns 0-3 at the Washington Redskins 1-2. The line here is -7.5 for Washington. And the over/under is right in the middle at 46.5. I'm not betting on this game personally. Some key player to look out for in this game is Terrell Pryor for the Browns, and I'm interested in see how much of the offense he's going to do. He was running the ball, throwing the ball, catching the ball all last week because the Browns are pretty much just a complete shit show as always again. Kirk Cousins is top 2 or 3 in the league in passing yards thus far on the Redskins side of the ball, but they haven't looked as good as the numbers might say. I think the Redskins win here. I might be using them as my survivor pool pick this week because you're pretty much a guaranteed win against the Browns at this point. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, everything you said is pretty much on point. Terrell Pryor is going to be the focal point for this Browns team as Josh Gordon just re-entered rehab today. Looking like he was going to be 1 week away from rejoining the team. That's definitely a true Browns moment, such as this season has gone with Carson Wentz being the guy that they passed up, and Carson Wentz coincidentally being the highest rated Pro Football Focus quarterback thus far. In my pigskin pick'em, however, I've been doing pretty well this season. I think I'm in the 98th percentile on ESPN. So I'm going to look to differentiate myself with this one, and I think I'm going to take the Browns this week and pick them. I'm not completely sold on it. I'm not saying that the Browns are going to win. I'm just going to try to differentiate myself. And I think with the way they've been playing recently, they've been getting up on teams, and then they've been squandering their leads. I don't think the Redskins have the offensive firepower if the Cleveland Browns are able to get up on them to come back. And honestly, Browns can only go so many games to start a season without a loss, I would think. And I honestly could see them after watching Washington win unconvincingly and then get demolished against the Steelers. And then they just haven't been a really convincing team. So I'm gonna roll with the Browns this week. Really just some blind faith with this one and Cody Kessler. I'm not sold on it, but that's what I'm gonna do.
Interesting. Would you be? You're like you said, you don't like to gamble the NFL, but would you be taking the Browns plus 7.5 if you're this big on the Browns potentially snagging a win just to differentiate, or is it just to differentiate yourself in the pick 'em here?
Yeah, plus 7.5 looks really good to me because I don't even think the Redskins can blow people out, let alone come back if the Browns get ahead. And I saw this line opened up at like 10, and now it's moved down to 7.5. So we saw what happened with the Cardinals line last week, moving down towards the Bills, and then ultimately coming back and biting us all in the butt. Everybody who's on the Cardinals money line or anything like that. So I think that the Browns could definitely cover 7.5. That'd be one of my leans per se.
Yep. As we all know, Ryan does not put money on spreads for the NFL, only in-game live betting. And if you follow him on Twitter, he might toss you a free bone here and there if he's feeling it. Next game we're looking at here, actually one of your potential picks. Seahawks 2-1 on the road. Jets 1-2. Seattle is favored by 2.5 here, and another ugly over/under at 40. Russell Wilson, as we know, is banged up, and he will be wearing that left knee brace like he did when he was playing at NC State. Brandon Marshall looks banged up. Eric Decker might be banged up pretty badly, apparently. The Jets really run their offense between four people anyway, between Forte, the two wide receivers I mentioned, and Inua. Meanwhile, on the Seahawks side, Christian Michael, the backup running back for Thomas Rawls, has looked all right. Doug Baldwin's been very solid, too. Other than that, there hasn't really been much fantasy goodness per se, especially after Ryan Fitzpatrick's 6 picks last week on the Jets side of the ball. 2.5 seems like a small number here, and the over/under, as we know, is pretty gross. There might be some rain expected in the forecast too. Where are you on this side of the game?
I think this game's just a perfect storm for a quality 16-13 game with the Seattle Seahawks being offensive lines in all of the NFL. Russell Wilson not being at full strength. Just that. So on the Seahawks side of the ball, I just don't see them putting up a lot of points. And then on the other side of the ball, if Ryan Fitzpatrick throws a pass in the middle of the woods and nobody's around to see it, does it get intercepted? I don't know. It might. Probably. So, I mean, they're just not going to put up a lot of points either. So, and then the defensive line for the Jets being one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, it just doesn't seem like a very good matchup for a lot of points to be scored here. So, if I'm going to make one NFL pick this week, it would definitely be this under 40 in this matchup.
There you go. I'm currently staying away from this game, but my one lean would be the tail U1 and then Seahawks minus. No, actually, no. I'm going Jets plus 2.5. Jets must win here. I think they pull one out in a gross game. Darrelle Revis, bold pick. Darrelle Revis wants one back here. We'll see what happens. I wonder what the Bovada prop bet for that is, but I can check that later. Next game, we have a little bit of fantasy goodness involved, high over under, and what should be a pretty good matchup between the 1-2 Panthers and the 2-1 Falcons. Carolina is 3-point road favorites with an over under here of 50.5. You might be thinking to yourself at home, why is this over under so high? The Panthers are really good defense, and Falcons aren't necessarily elite offense. And just to put everything in a nutshell for you when I'm looking at this game, the Panthers have played some of the toughest defenses to say. Like they opened up the week with the Broncos, and people are looking at this team and like, wow, are they really the same? Are they the same on defense too? They lost Josh Norman. I am not believing what everyone's saying. I think everyone's overreacting. Panthers are still a class of the NFL. 3 points is a little too much. Is not enough in my opinion. I'm leaning Panthers here. And the under, honestly, you got a stat here I know up your sleeve about Cam Newton not being able to have over 22 fantasy points in his last 5 times against the Falcons, even though some of those games have been blowouts. It's been pretty much like a 35 or 33-3 game or a 16-19 game in the last 4 games between these two teams. I'm staying away overall, but if I gun to the head, Panthers, and I pick them too. And your pick's been pick'ems. Not my survivor pick though. I would not pick them right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with everything you said. The Carolina Panthers they're just a better team. They've just had a rocky road to start the season, and the Falcons getting the Saints, just an absolute shootout. The Raiders, who knows what the Raiders are this year? Those are 2 okay wins so far, and a lot of people are just seeing 1-2 and thinking, okay, the Carolina Panthers aren't what they used to. But I just simply don't think that's true. I think it's just a product of their tough early season schedule. They had some struggles offensively last week against the Vikings, but the Vikings have an elite defense in the NFL, and the Falcons just don't. So I think the Panthers definitely put up way more points than they have in previous weeks, and Kelvin Benjamin's not going to have another one-target game. Pigskin pick him going with the Panthers as well.
Yeah, it was pretty disgusting to see Kelvin Benjamin only get one target and no catches last game. I expect him to have a really huge bounce-back game, something to take a look at in fantasy sports as well. He won't be nearly as highly owned due to the high recency bias across the industry. Moving on to the next game, one of my picks here, we have 2-1 Raiders on the road playing the Baltimore Ravens, who are 3-0. The spread right now is Baltimore minus 3.5, with a decent over/under of 46.5 here. A game that I think will probably be a shootout. Not that either team's defenses are really terrible. The Raiders' front seven hasn't been what it has been yet, what we know the front seven could be. And the Raiders technically have the #1 rated cornerback on Pro Football Focus if you take away that first game. The Raiders for cornerback. But I think this game has a high opportunity to go over. My pick here is the Raiders plus 3.5. I think the Raiders are a better team than the Ravens. And I'm not really concerned about the cross-country thing at all. I think that if that was the case, this spread would be higher, in return for the Raiders. But I like the Raiders plus 3.5 here. I like that offense. Amari Cooper has just missed the end zone the last couple of weeks. I feel like him and Derek Carr are really on the same page. Even though this rushing attack looks like a mess for the Raiders, it really hasn't been all that bad. The tandem squad that they've been running out there. Ravens' pass offenses look solid, but they rely on the deep ball and don't really have an established run game yet. Joe Flacco's #1 option pretty much is dumping it off to Dennis Pitta. He hasn't been able to go deep to Mike Wallace. Ryan, what are your perspectives on this game?
Yeah, I think this one's going to answer a lot of questions as well with, are the Raiders a legit team, and then are the Ravens a legit team? The Ravens love to throw the ball. Mark Trestman's one of the most pass-happy play callers in the entire NFL. Honestly, I think this game comes down to a Justin Tucker field goal at the end, and Justin Tucker just doesn't miss in the clutch. I like your 3.5 pick with it being a field goal game in my mind. I think it finishes somewhere around like a 25-22 game, something like that. I don't really have a whole lot going into the game flow and everything with this one. I just really think the Ravens at home are going to be able to pull this one out. 1 o'clock game is an early game for the Raiders, but on the West Coast it's going to be the time zone change. I'm taking that into account a little bit with my straight up pick with the Vegas line, though. I'm not really taking that into account at all. I'm just going to go with the Ravens on my pigskin pick 'em, but then again, this is one of my 2 or 3 toss-ups for the week.
There you go. Yeah, it is pretty much a toss-up. Oakland is 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 games on the road. 4-1 straight up in the last 5 games in a row. And then if you look at Baltimore, they're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, and they're 4-1 straight up in the last 5 games as well. But they are 2-9-1 against the spread in this last 12 games at home. Something to look at in the Ravens' perspective of things. Another added reason to why I'm looking at the Oakland Raiders plus 3.5. I really hope it bounces to 4. That would be just awesome. Moving on to the next game, we have another one of my picks, actually. The Lions, 1-2, going out to Chicago, the Windy City, to play the 0-3 Bears. Detroit right now is -3 with a decent with a pretty good over/under here, 48. As we know, the Bears are pretty much a mess. They're pretty much a hospital. No one's healthy on that team aside from Alshon Jeffrey, more or less. They got Brian Hoyer at quarterback, and Langford is hurt as well. So Jordan Howard, rookie, one of the 5th-round pick, I want to say, from Indiana, is taking the bulk of the load. Marvin Jones is getting Calvin Johnson type usage from Matt Stafford. I love me some Lions -3 here. To the bank. I just think that I don't care how bad the defenses looked for the Lions. They are bottom 3, bottom 4 teams in yardage allowed, points allowed, and all that fun stuff. But they like to be in shootouts, and I think this game will not be a shootout because the Bears' offense is pitiful. Alshon Jeffrey has had success against the Lions in the past. But aside from that, this Bears' offense is pretty putrid. What are your thoughts on this game?
I really just love Stafford with Jim Bob Cooter. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL from a production and fantasy perspective. The wins, losses haven't really shown it. They were definitely better in the second half of the season last year after they fired, I believe Lombardi was their offensive coordinator. And then the Bears are a dumpster fire. Everybody on that team's getting hurt. That defense just can't stop anybody. Dak Prescott threw all over them. Ezekiel Elliott ran for some 140 yards. I love the Lions this week, straight up. For money line purposes, I would consider them for a survivor. There's like 3 teams this week I'm considering for a survivor. My survivor pick's actually playing tonight on Thursday. I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals in my survivor this week against the Andy Dalton 8 o'clock game trend. But there's one of the other games I'm considering.
Yeah, well, since we're not touching upon that game, it's just something for our listeners to note that we are both anti-Andy Dalton people. Well, in my opinion, I don't consider this game in prime time because I don't think that many people will be watching it as much as someone would be watching a later Sunday game. But this could read Andy Dalton poop all over the place, but I don't think this merits for my theory of it yet. But moving on to the 4 o'clock games, with Detroit -3 to the books. 4 o'clock games, Broncos 3-0 at the Bucks 1-2. Denver is only favored by 3 in this game with over/under at 43. I don't understand Vegas in this one here. I could be a complete dummy and lose this one, but I like Denver -3. I don't think Tampa Bay has the firepower whatsoever to break the Broncos defense. I think the Broncos control the pace the entire time. They make Jameis Winston make mistakes, and Doug Martin is out for the Bucks, and I don't think Charles Sims can be a back that breaks this game out and keeps them close at all. Denver -3 to the house. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't really understand it much at all, and I guess that's why I'm going to be staying away from it at the end of the day. It could be a big trap here. I'm not really sure what the exact trap would be, but it seems like every one of the Buccaneers' strengths that they would use to exploit the Broncos match up perfectly with their strengths in return. Like Tampa Bay has a very, very good set of wide receivers in Nathan Jackson, who's kind of on the downs now, and then Mike Evans. But Mike Evans is pretty much an elite receiver, and then a lot of people are giving a lot of love to Humphreys in the slot for the Buccaneers. But then the Broncos match up really well there with their cornerbacks being a key to lead Chris Harris Jr. and Bradley Roby. Chris Harris Jr. being one of the best slot cornerbacks in the NFL, so I think Humphrey's pretty much going to be shut down. And then Von Miller has just been absolutely insane on that defense. I can't see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers scoring more than some 20, 22 points at the most. And
That's
then
a lot of points.
At the end of the day,
that's what the spread says. That's what the spread pretty much says, and the over-under says they're going to score like 22 points.
But then I think that the Broncos are just going to be able to pick them apart on the ground, especially because the Buccaneers, they just let up some 30 points to the LA Rams. They're not going to stop the Broncos. I completely agree with your spread pick on this one. With the Broncos on the road, I don't really see that much of an issue.
I guess what Vegas is trying to tell me is that Buccaneers front seven is so good that it's just going to cause so many problems because Simeon can't throw the ball. But Simeon, torched the Bengals, so maybe the Bengals stink in their defense. But this game will say a lot if the Bucs win about just who the Bengals are, kind of in a way. If you look at one thing to the next game, kind of thing. But I think Broncos win this outright by 10 points potentially. Just doesn't. Whatever. They got the extra time too. It's 4 o'clock game. Whatever. Bucs stink. Mike Evans is the only threat, and if Jameis Winston gets hot, then maybe they stay in it. But I don't think he breaks apart that Broncos secondary. Next game. Speaking of the Rams, 2-1 LA Rams at the Cardinals, 1-2. Arizona's -8 favorites, as they should be. Over under at 43 right here. This is a Jeff Fisher classic. He's 2-1 here. He's doing too good. He's going to lose a game. That's it. That's how Jeff Fisher works. He's Mr. 500. The Rams will never be too far above or below 500 ever. Cardinals win straight up, -8. Don't hate it if you're leaning that way, but we know how Bruce Arians likes to come out after a loss and just absolutely light up the scoreboard. I am putting a decent tournament lineup here on FanDuel together with Carson Palmer stacked up with his receivers because I think he has a big game against the Rams. What are your thoughts in this game?
It's not going to be close. This is a survivor consideration here for the Cardinals. But seeing the Cardinals start off 1-3 and the LA Rams quarterbacked by Case Keenum starting off 3-1 is just flat out not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. There's not much else to say there. Obviously, like there's a little bit of respect to the Rams defense and all, but Cardinals, my opinion, are part of the class of the NFL. There's 4 or 5 teams that are maybe even 3 to 4 teams that are quote unquote class of the NFL teams, and Cardinals are in contention for one of those. Class of the NFL teams don't lose games, and they whoop teams up after they come out of a loss, especially at home. Next game, some huge time fantasy goodness here. A game that everyone will be paying attention to on GameCast or whatever method you go, Red Zone or whatever. 0-3 Saints at the 1-2 Chargers. Over under here is 53.5. San Diego is favored by 4. Everyone knows it's going to be a shootout. Is it going to be a shootout, Ryan? What are your thoughts?
At the end of the day, I think it will be a shootout. I think it might start off slow, but I think at the end of the day, Jason Verrett for the Chargers, he hasn't been playing up to his normal level, so I think he'll be able to hinder the New Orleans pass attack a little bit, but then the Chargers are going to be able to put up 1,000,000 points. The Saints, at the end of the day, Verrett might slow them down, but they're going to still put up 1,000,000 points. Daily fantasy purposes, if you're looking at this game for your lineup, everybody else is too. You're probably not going to differentiate yourself much in a tournament, but cash play, there's going to be some really high ownership in this game, especially in the backfield. Mel Gordon. But pigskin pick 'em, I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. In FanDuel, DraftKings, you just eat your chalk with Melvin Gordon. He's getting the touches and he's getting the catches out of the backfield too. Gets the red line work, and if Antonio Gates is out again, he's just going to get more red zone work rather. I don't know if the Saints are going to be able to score a lot of points in this game. I just on the road, and you had mentioned Verrett being a bit of a problem for outside receivers, and if Willie Snead is out again too, it's really restricting Drew Brees' options, and it's not like Mark Ingram has looked like the Mark Ingram we know whatsoever coming out of the backfield. Give me the Chargers -4 as one of my picks. Absolutely love them there. I think this game will go under the total too, by the way. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as possible. If it is, I think the Chargers absolutely torch the Saints. That's how it'll happen. Next game, the boys, Cowboys 2-1 on the road at the San Francisco 49ers 1-2. Cowboys are 2-point favorites here. Over under here at 45. This is a game I'm not really paying attention to whatsoever, except for some Cole Beasley action in FanDuel, especially with the news that Dez Bryant might be out after he dipped out of his MRI because he's scared to find out bad news. I have no read on this game whatsoever because the 49ers have played decent to begin the year, not terrible. And the Cowboys have looked pretty good too. -2 here on the road. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys pull out like a double-digit win. But I'm staying away from this game in its entirety. I don't really have a complete read on the 49ers and how fast-paced of a team they are. They just run quick plays every 23, 24 seconds. We know how Chip Kelly goes. So I'm staying away, in my opinion. Would not have either of these teams in a survivor pool, but I would take 49ers in the pick 'em. There, said it, but I don't know. This is something I don't like.
Yeah, I think that actually the Cowboys offer a lot of value at their money line at only -128. I think the 49ers definitely overperformed on that opening night game. Chip Kelly and the 49ers in general are just notoriously really good week 1 teams, and then they tend to dip off. You said that they haven't looked terrible, but then they're playing at really fast pace, and their defense is on field for a lot of plays. And the Cowboys are just going to grind them down. Dak Prescott's just going to not throw an interception, and then Ezekiel Elliott's just hopefully not to fumble and then run the ball 30 times. I think it's going to be a grind down game. Where at the end of the game, Zeke busts out a nice little a 30-plus yard run that really demoralizes the 49ers for a little bit of game flow insight. I think the pigs can pick them, the Cowboys, and I really like the value.
Yeah, I don't hate anything you said there, Ryan. This is kind of a game that I'm not looking at in perspective, really things. But if I had to lean somewhere, I guess under 45 makes a bit of sense here. Moving to the next game, the Sunday night game, 8:30. Chiefs 2-1 at the Steelers, who are also 2-1. The long-awaited return of Le'Veon Bell, bringing us back some fantasy goodness for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell was one of my favorite three sons of the NFL. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver combination there. We have Pittsburgh -5 currently, and the over/under is set at 47. I like Pittsburgh in this game if I'm leaning anywhere, gun to the head. And the over/under, I like the over as well. I think the Chiefs are able to put up points because the Steelers' defense isn't that great. But all in all, the Steelers will win this game, in my opinion. So if I'm leaning anywhere for my survivor pool or pick on the challenges for week by week, I'm going with the Steelers. And last but certainly not least, the G-Men Giants, Monday Night Football, 2-1, heading out to play the Vikings, 3-0, in their beautiful new stadium that seems absolutely intimidating to play at, especially when the Vikings begin doing their chant, which is just it's something to see, and I'm very excited for the Vikings fans because they have themselves a very solid football team and a very good defense, even though they lost their starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. Our boy Sammy Bradford Sleeves has looked all right this year, and the Vikings are a -5 favorite with an over/under at 43. Give me the Vikings to the house, please. Not spread necessarily, but this is a game that I think the Vikings win outright. I don't know how the Giants are going to react and come back together after a kind of a gross game in Washington, where not in Washington necessarily, but against Washington, where they just looked like flat out just stop playing football. Odell Beckham Jr. was getting all emotional on the sidelines and being a baby as always and causing distraction to the team. I think they get together their focus for this week, but I don't think it would be enough to beat the Vikings in that defense. It is just something else. And even Shane and on the Giants side of the ball, they lost both their starting running backs. Rashad Jennings out, Shane Vereen now out. They're going with their running back Darkwa now. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on me here, man? Or are you good to go on this Giants-Vikings game? And we lost Ryan, but that's all right. Well, that's going to conclude the show here today. I went solo for a bit of the time, but that's all right. Just to recap my picks here for you guys, I'll be tweeting them out and putting them on the website. But I have Jacksonville +2.5, the early game on Sunday. I like Detroit -3 at Chicago. I like Oakland +3 at Baltimore. I like San Diego -4.5 in San Diego playing the New Orleans Saints. And I like Denver -3 at Tampa Bay. I'll be tweeting all those picks out from my account at VaughnR16 and at Setting the Edge _. Make sure you check out our website as well at settingtheedge.weebly.com. Everything will be up there for you guys. Like, subscribe, tweet at us, follow us. Enjoy the content, guys, and best of luck this weekend in your fantasy and gambling endeavors. Cheers.